Hi, I'm James,
And I'm Teresa.
and this is the Creating Normal podcast, a podcast on living a creative life beyond mental illness.
Where we share our successes and our struggles in life and in art.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Creating Normal podcast. I'm James Prescott, and with me is Teresa Colon.
Hello, everyone.
Really great to be with you all again. Another episode. I've already lost count of the number of episodes that we're in. I must be about, three, four, something like that.
This is number 4, yeah.
Number 4, that's it. Here we go. My Enneagram number, actually, which is another episode we need to do at some point. But yes, so we're going to be talking about something interesting today in a minute. But first, Teresa, tell us about your week.
This has not been one of my shining weeks, quite candidly. It actually started off really amazingly. I wrote a post for a big publication, and it did pretty well, but the more exciting part was that I got an email from somebody else who had read the piece and asked if they could put it up, syndicate it, basically, and put it up on their website. And the really exciting part was that they said that their website gets 30 million views every month. So that is an opportunity that I'm really excited about. That piece hasn't gone up on the new website yet, so I'm just waiting on that email. But that was really exciting for me. And then kind of had some realizations that with everything that I'm doing, that I've been trying to sprint through too much of it, and really just wore myself out. So started trying to take more of a marathon approach to what I'm doing, which means that I continue to prioritize the other things that are important for me, such as especially like self-care kind of stuff. And that realization came just by being too late. So one of the things that I realized was that I've been sprinting too much, and as a result, I've taken my focus off some of my self-care, and that I need to be looking at things better as more like a marathon. And if I know that I'm looking at something as a marathon instead of a sprint, then that means that I don't sacrifice things that are important to me, such as knitting time, such as working late into the night, such as getting good sleep. So that was a really important realization for me. Sadly, it came a little bit late in this current sprint process because I got really sick on Wednesday night. I woke up Thursday morning just really nailed. And honestly, I've hardly been able to move off the couch. I have drunk gallons of water and getting my daughter to school and home. And that has been about all I have been able to achieve for the past week. So no new blog posts this week, no new post up on Medium. I'm a little frustrated, but today is the first day I've been feeling better. And I'm excited that I get to at least keep to this podcasting recording schedule. So that's my week. How's your week been?
My week's been a bit more challenging. This week's been quite triggering, which we're going to talk about later. But yeah, in terms of my mental illness, mental health, it's been difficult. Been very stressful. For some reason, it's just been a challenge, it was good in one sense. I tried out a new spiritual community this week, which was like being able to breathe oxygen when you haven't been able to for ages.
Sorry for the audience. I have a cat who just came and decided she needed some love. So if you're hearing meowing noises in the background, I apologize.
The cat's joining us on the podcast. It was like, but going to that place was like breathing oxygen for the first time for a long time. And that was really healthy.
Good.
But there's been stress with finances and that kind of thing, which hasn't helped as well. And that's kind of under control now. But life challenges have really been big this week. I've been talking to some people about my writing and why I'm struggling with my writing, why I'm struggling with creating things, and still working on that. And we'll see what happens. So been difficult, but I'm kind of getting through. And it's nice to be here and to talk to you and talk to you listeners as well.
Aw, I feel special, James. So triggers, I think that is an important conversation to have because, when we are triggered, that can really impact not just our ability to be creative, but our ability to function altogether.
Absolutely. And I think the key thing about triggers is actually that all of us have them. Everyone. Yeah. Even if you haven't got mental illness, even if you haven't got a mental illness, there are things that there are things that will set you off.
Yep.
There are things that when somebody says it, or somebody does it, or you get treated a certain way, you will react strongly to it. We all have those things. People with mental illness probably have them more acutely, I would say.
Yes.
And much more, maybe more specifically. But certainly we all have those. We all have, and it's different for every single one of us because we're all different and we all have different stories. So.
Well, we're human.
Yep.
I mean, we're human, right? And we're raised by human people, which means that we're raised by people who aren't perfect. And naturally, that means that our parents goofed up with us somewhere, or we have a friend, or we had a lover, or we had somebody who has mistreated us in some way. And maybe it was through, the best of intentions or whatever. But we receive messages in those mistakes, and those messages they kind of get recorded deep into our brain, and getting through those or changing those reactions, is very difficult, especially if you're not aware of them. You just respond and you don't even always know what you're responding to.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Sometimes this and it's this thing that happens in your brain. We have to distinguish the trigger that happens in your brain and your reaction to it. This is what I've learned.
Yes.
While I've been working through this stuff with therapy and mindset coaching and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is that you actually get to choose how you respond to the triggers, but you don't get to choose the things that trigger you.
Yep.
So you will. So if you get triggered, you will be triggered, and your brain will react to it in a certain way.
Yes.
The only power that we have is to choose how we react to it and how we manage it. And I think I spent a lot of time thinking that you had to actually try. You could stop the trigger, but you can't. What you can control is how you respond to it. And I'm beginning to learn all my triggers, and I've been learning how to manage them, how to manage how I respond to them.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for about 18 months now, and I've made a lot of progress. It's still a challenge and it's still a struggle, but I know I've made a lot of progress, and if I keep on this road, then I will get to a much healthier place.
I think that's a great attitude, right? CBT is something that I'm a huge fan of. And in fact, I have a CBT workbook up as a download up on the Wounded Birds Ministry website because I believe in it so much. And, I think a lot of times we just know that we have these behaviors. So for example, my husband works a lot of hours. And we went through a stretch here recently where he works, 8 hours a day, and then he works these overnight shifts. And that often means that he doesn't even come home between shifts. And sometimes he can be gone for a few days because he's working so much. And that's all well and good if he is continuing to text me consistently. If he's continuing to send me little love notes or whatever, it makes it easy for me to kind of make my way through that because that's really been what the course of, 8 years of our relationship have been like. But recently we went through a stretch where he was so busy at work that he wasn't even doing that stuff And so I was having a lot of challenges. And my reaction to that, that was a trigger for me, was feeling kind of feeling abandoned, quite honestly. And my reaction to that was to start to try to cling to him and not necessarily to reach out to him in healthy ways. So I was actually, I know I became rather annoying. And I know that he was really frustrated with me because I was, telling him, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And I know that all he felt was pressure from me. And he was feeling pressure at work. And he's feeling financial pressure because we're on a single income. And right now, I'm not bringing in anything. I don't have a book for sale. I don't have any of that stuff going on to help in any way. So, but that was my response. That's what I had going on. And I had to explain to him, that as much as I can understand and as much as I can know that his behavior isn't about me, it still triggers that piece of me. And that is my response. And as much as I'm trying to fight it, I need from him to respond to me differently to help. And, what's been really good about that is that he ended up being really receptive to that conversation, but it did have to be a conversation. And he just started like sitting next to me on the couch when we watched TV at night. And even just that small thing just kind of calmed a little bit of that piece of me and allowed me to respond in a more healthy way. And then we started a virtuous cycle as opposed to one of those vicious cycles.
Yeah, virtuous cycle. That's a good phrase.
You like that?
Yeah. I've never heard that before. That's really good. Yeah, virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle. Like it. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, triggers for me, I think whenever I feel like I'm missing out on something, when everyone knows something and I don't.
Yep.
Or everyone gets something and I don't, or I feel that way.
Yes.
That's one thing. When I feel like I'm being misunderstood, or people are saying things about me that are not true, or making judgments about who I am that are not accurate.
Sure.
That's a trigger. When I see other, and one thing that used to be a massive trigger, that is still a little bit of a trigger, but isn't quite as much now, was seeing other people who started their work after me be more successful than me.
Yeah.
People kind of surpass me, and yeah, and being happy for them, but being jealous and frustrated and feeling like a failure. Especially if it's people that I knew, I know, that's what set me off this week. Actually, what was that? I didn't, because it caught me off guard. I chose to just sit and dwell on it instead of doing what I normally do, which is just not ignore it, but just say, I'm not going to respond to this. I'm okay on myself. I'm okay on my journey. I don't need to compare myself to anybody. I'm getting into good habits of doing that, but this time I didn't. And it was a deep rabbit hole and very dark.
Yeah.
So that's a huge trigger, and money, anything and technology, things that I feel out of control of, that I don't understand, that are working against me, and it's not my fault, but there's nothing I can do. When that situation happens with anything, whether it's money or technology or anything else, that it doesn't. I mean, there's no one particular area really. When that happens, I feel trapped and I feel afraid and I start panicking and my mind goes all over the place and then my head's gone,
Because I think that's a really good point, that when we have a lot of stressors around us, we are more easily triggered. So things that we've worked through, we and normally can handle because we worked our way through them. Once we start getting those stressors applied, and James, I'm like you, if I'm feeling financial stress, that is a real challenge for me to work my way through, because I've had some very serious financial, kind of experiences and disasters, quite frankly. So if I'm feeling financially stressed, it is so much easier for somebody to say something that is going to set off a trigger. I'm much more responsive to those triggers when I'm feeling just kind of stress in general. And, sleep plays a role in that too, right? So if I'm not sleeping well, and because of the stress, I'm not sleeping well, because now I'm not well rested, plus I'm stressed. Now, you get this like perfect storm of things that just make you super receptive to those triggers, even the ones that you have learned how to manage in most cases.
I agree. Yeah, and I think money is a trigger for a lot of people, actually, because so much of us put our security in money, don't we? I mean, and the bottom line is, even if your security isn't in money, money pays the bills, money pays the rent, pays the mortgage, keeps a roof over your head, buys food. You need it. You need money as a resource. And so, of course, if there are money troubles, then anyone is going to get in and is going to be struggling with stress and anxiety and stuff, because anyone can get into that situation because of money. I'm not saying anyone can get mental illness because of money. If people don't want people to misunderstand me, but I'm saying that you can feel anxiety that everybody feels when it comes to money. Money is a big stress like trigger, for a lot of people, for most people, especially when you haven't got enough. It's so that's not uncommon.
So let's talk about some of the ways that we can kind of work our way through these triggers. And I guess maybe this is going to be my tip and recommend for the week too, James. First of all, CBT, identifying what the trigger is. And sometimes that means really digging through the situation to find like the one statement or the one thing that really in that moment, caused the trigger. And then identifying thinking distortions that apply in that moment, and coming up with new thoughts that you can use to replace those in the future. And that's core CBT right there. And it's not an easy exercise to do, and it's not easy to remember, but the more you do it, like any muscle, the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you remember to do it in the moment. So that's one thing that I know helps people. And then another thing that I know is to find an outlet. So remember that you don't have to respond to every thought, and that you can choose your response. And so especially like if I'm in a situation kind of like that financially where I don't have any control, I look for the one thing that I can control. And sometimes that's my writing. That's where writing really comes a big help to me, reaching out and really focusing on using my art to help express the frustration or express the emotion that I have in that moment. And sometimes, I hate to say it, those triggers are when I have my biggest, we'll call them a burst of genius, although I don't really feel like that's a fair phrase, but that's when I get that. Sometimes I do my best work when I'm feeling really triggered like that.
Yeah, and I want to echo that, really. I mean, I've done CBT, and I could heartily recommend it. I really can. It is life changing. If you stick with it and you push through it, and to start with, changing the way you respond to things is challenging, but if you're willing to do the work, it is worth it. Absolutely agree with that. And it's funny because I was just doing an interview for my own podcast, which will be live by the time this goes live. And the person I was interviewing said to me that the research actually shows that writing is one of the big things. It's one of the best and most healthy ways of dealing with our pain, with our trauma, with things that are going on inside of us, because it uses parts of the brain. It gets us engaging with parts of the brain that we hadn't processed, and so information and stuff that's in there that maybe we didn't even realize was in there, or just stuff that we hadn't got out of ourselves, we can get it out through writing. And you don't have to be a writer to do that. You can just keep a journal. Anyone can keep a journal. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It can be the worst writing in the world. But if it's your journal, you'll just get this stuff out of you, and it will be really, really healing. And I know this from experience, because although I'm struggling as a writer right now, I know that the times that I have been writing, I've been writing stuff that's really, really personal, really, really painful. Not that I haven't shared it with anybody, but it's been really, really healing when I've done that. And every time I've done it, I've thought I should be doing. I know I should be doing this more, because this is healing for me. And so I really want to recommend journaling to everyone, because, and it doesn't even matter whether you have a mental illness or not. It's a good practice to get into, because it will get things out that you weren't otherwise dealing with, and it might actually make you see things differently. You might start to unpack things that were inside of you that you didn't know were there, issues that you have, insecurities, fears that you have that you didn't know you had. And when you name them, or when you get them out, then you can talk about them with somebody you trust, or with a therapist or an expert, somebody you trust, somebody who cares about you, or somebody who's just a trained and an expert in these things, and you can actually start processing this stuff. So I really want to recommend that to people as a really practical way to deal with this kind of thing. When you get triggered, sometimes, I have a mindset coach, and what I do is when I get triggered, I send them messages. And what has actually happened is a lot of those messages where I've written out what's happening and how I'm feeling, I've been healing, just writing them out. And I've actually kept them, because they're kind of bits of writing. They're effectively bits of writing that I've been, and they've helped me process all the stuff that's been going on. And sometimes by the end of writing these things, I don't actually need advice from anybody else, because I've just got the stuff out of me and I've processed it by writing. That's kind of often how writing works. And anyone who's a writer will understand that. But if you're not a writer, I still recommend this to you, because it's such a, I can't overemphasize enough. I can't emphasize enough, if I can say it properly, I can't emphasize enough how powerful writing is. Let's put it that way. So, journaling.
My therapist says that journaling is the cheapest therapy out there. That's his statement, because it can save you tons of money on therapy, because effectively that is the therapeutic process, is what you're doing in journaling. Now, I know that a lot of people, when I recommend journaling, and I love journaling, I'm right there with you, James. Like, you should see, I keep a shelf in in our guest room closet full of the journals that I've completed. And for a while there, I was going through a journal like every 60 days or so. And I've slowed down a bit. I don't write quite as much as I used to, because I don't have the same kind of, emotional stuff that I need to be working through at the same kind of level. But I know when I talk to people about this, they say, I've tried journaling and it just doesn't work for me. And I want to suggest to you trying something else. Remember that this isn't about sharing this with somebody else. This is about getting it out of you, getting the hidden stuff out of your head. And what I love about journaling is that it's very stream of consciousness. And if you struggle with the writing aspect of it, most of us have smartphones these days, and they have cameras on them. And so I would just selfie a video and just talk to the camera. And that way you have a face to look to, and, just have a conversation with yourself, and you can record it, or you can delete the recording when you're done, whatever it feels better for you. I have found that to also be really helpful for people, especially people who struggle with writing from a journaling perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've done that as well. Talking is a great way to process things. So, yes, I agree with that. So there's three things: CBT, journaling, or just recording yourself on video, and never showing it to anyone. Video journaling, in a sense. So I think that's kind of our tips for this week as well, isn't it? Our kind of recommended resources. So this has been really, really helpful. This has kind of really been a brief very brief kind of look at triggers. I'm sure we'll examine triggers a lot more in future episodes as well. I think this is really an introduction to the subject rather than anything else. So we will explore this a lot more. This has been really,
and
really
check
good.
the show notes because I've done some writing on triggers in the past, and I'll put a link to those. I think right now it's only one, but I think I have triggers coming up in the next week or two. So that post may be live actually by the time this podcast goes live. And actually, I think, James, you might be guest posting that week on triggers as well. So, whatever links are available, those will be in the show notes, which you can find at creatingnormal.com.
Yes, absolutely. We'll put those up there. I'll get a link to that podcast episode I mentioned, I think I have a blog post about writing with anxiety, how it can help, which I can get a link to as well in the show notes. So there'll be some stuff there if you just want to check that out. Obviously, you can find all of our there's loads of resources on our website, in the show notes on our website at which is creatingnormal.me, isn't it? I think was it. I can't remember now.
Creatingnormalpodcast.com.
Sorry.
Creatingnormalpodcast.com.
Creatingnormalpodcast.com. Okay, and we're on Twitter, obviously, at creatingnormal. Follow us there, and you can. And if you go to the website, you can find out how to contact us individually as well, and say hi. We will say hi back. So going into this week, create courageously and
love yourself fiercely.
Oh, I love that. Take care, everyone.
Have a great week. Thanks for listening to the Creating Normal podcast. You can find links and show notes to everything we've discussed today on our website at creatingnormalpodcast.com. We invite you to continue the conversation in our Facebook group, which you can find at Creating Normal Community. You can follow James on Twitter and Instagram at JamesPrescott77, and you can follow Teresa on Twitter and Instagram at Teresa M. Cologne. Thanks for listening.